Welcome back to the official Atari Games podcast. I assure you this is not becoming a purely Bubsy podcast. This is the third in a row that we are going to be talking about Bubsy-related things. But I assure you we have more things to talk about, and we will in the coming episodes. But we got a great opportunity here. We got a great guest. But first, before we get to him, let me introduce my other guest, Sam Brown, returning again for the third time in a row. This is the hat trick. Sam Brown, release manager at Atari and producer on Bubsy 4D. Welcome, Sam.
Hi, it's great to be here. I love to talk about Bubsy. If it looks like it rained on me, it's because it did.
Sam, I threw you under the bus many times because it's your fault that this game exists. I really hope that comes through in at least a couple of the reports. And also joining us is a very special guest, the voice of Bubsy in Bubsy 4D, Sean Chiplock. Welcome, Sean.
Bringing the voice actor on to talk about himself. What could possibly go wrong? Hello, everybody.
Like that's a wrap, everybody. That's a wrap on the podcast.
It's all they paid me for. That's where the $500 appearance fee came from.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Yeah, well, thank you for joining us on this definitely planned episode and not something that we pulled together in the last 48 hours. But yes, thank you so much. It's a pleasure to have you on. Before we get into that, because we're just going to talk about you and we're going to talk to you. Okay. We're going to learn all about all sorts of things, Bubsy and otherwise. But before we get into that, just the general housekeeping. First of all, Bubsy 4D is announced. It's real. This is actually the first time we've recorded a podcast since it's been announced. And I just want to say thank you to the amazing reception of the game. It's truly been heartwarming, and it's been a lot. It's been a lot in every sense of the word.
It is always such a, I'll try not to make everything that I say 5 minutes long, but it is always a tedious thing as a voice actor because we work on projects that have development times anywhere from a couple weeks to a couple months to a couple years. And there has literally been cases of projects that have finally been announced where so much time passed that I brought it up to someone who would normally have loved that kind of game, only to have them say, yeah, that's for babies. I'm so past it. I don't care about it anymore. So I have gotten used to just like not expecting anything and just accepting that sometimes things come out and immediately disappear into the ether. And the sheer amount of online love and intentional cringe and just the embracing that the web as a whole has given to this game is, I really appreciate it. It's been really, really delightful to see.
Yeah. It's truly been great. And yeah, so if you haven't done so yet, please go and wishlist Bubsy 4D on your platform of choice. You can do that on everything except for Switch, basically, because of reasons that are required in configuring the Switch backend.
Release manager reasons.
Yeah, release manager reasons. Sam wouldn't know anything about that.
Very top secret.
Yeah, top secret stuff. I don't know actually what you can and cannot say about that. But regardless, we're not going to because we can't.
Sure.
Or choose not to. Or both. Subscribe to the podcast, review the podcast, join the Discord. All those things are in the link or in the links below in the description. And we only have Sean for a limited time, so I want to get right into it. Sean, I want to know about Bubsy. I want to know all of that, but that is just the latest small chapter in an incredibly vast career. And I got to go back to the beginning. It's probably something that, that always starts with any of these interviews. But I want to know, like, how did you actually get into voice acting? What is it that
I am so extremely grateful that I discovered voiceover. And every time anyone who's followed my interviews will know this story by heart at this point. So we'll see what minor detail I have managed to change over the years. But
this is the Atari podcast, by the way. So our listeners are probably, they're like, voice acting,
right? So I mean,
Berserk, you mean?
So the actual seeds got planted during high school. But even what's important to know is that even before then, before I even understood what voice acting was, there was this inkling of interest because I grew up in the 90s. So I had a Nintendo 64. I had the classic handhelds. My brother and I very much grew up during that era where games had enough memory or data available to have extended cutscenes and dialogue, but not necessarily voices. And then as we reached that era where voice acting began to be included, it was often an afterthought rather than it being something that entire teams dedicated budgets towards. But even before I understood what voice acting even was, my brother and I would play games like Bomberman 64, The Second Attack, or Banjo-Kazooie, and we would take turns doing voices for the characters, like saying the words that were on the screen. And I know this sounds ridiculous, but I would do this, actively do this. And then when I was done playing games, I'd watch something like Dexter's Lab or Powerpuff Girls, and it would never ring in my brain that there were human beings doing the voices for those characters, you know? As far as I was concerned, it was a computer-generated voice or something like that, which is ironic, given the state of today's industry in certain sections. But so fast forward to high school, and I was fine. I was doing well in my classes. I was paying attention. I was doing the work. But we were definitely in the throes of getting asked to figure out what we wanted to do in college, what we wanted to dedicate 4 years of our life to studying and hyper fixating on. And there was nothing that quite registered to me in that way. I was okay with math until a certain point. I wasn't much of a big fan of history. Again, ironic now. Language arts was fine, but you couldn't sit me in front of a Word document writing about symbolic themes for hours at a time. And I was really struggling to figure out what I was going to focus on. And so as a night owl, I was often spending time late night doing dailies when servers reset, and I mean late, because I lived in Michigan. So anything that had headquarters over in California, it was 3 a.m. for us over on the East Coast when stuff reset for the day, like Neopets, MapleStory, everything you can think of. And I ended up, just without making this into a 15-minute story, I ended up randomly stumbling across a behind-the-scenes video, like MTV style, of a voice actor recording for a role in a booth. And it was unique because they were showing, via 2 cameras, they were showing the actor in the booth preparing to do his performance, and then there was a camera pointed at the clip of what he was dubbing. So I was watching the dubbing process happen in real time, but also seeing both the person doing it and seeing how it immediately translated to the performance of the character on screen. And that just enraptured me. Like, it just lit a flame. It caught my interest in a way that nothing else had. And it was the first time in a long time since starting high school that there was something I independently was interested in with no outside influence, with no one pushing me to make a decision. And that's when I knew it was something that was important to me. And really, everything bubbled over from that point. It was latching on to that passion that had suddenly ignited and going, I want to learn more about this. I want to do this. I want to become good at this. I want to entertain people the same way that watching that clip entertained me. And I'd be remiss to say that as long as that passion is there, I hope the career continues, because it has been, even though life continues to get busier and busier and busier, my ability to connect with people through the work that I do, even if I haven't watched the show or played the game, being able to connect with people who have played the game or have watched the show because I know what they're talking about from having worked on it, that is kind of my way of being social without overextending myself and kind of taking myself out of my element. So yeah, that's the long and short answer of how I got involved. But really, that's awesome. Passion is at the core of all of it. The passion of the fans now, the passion of myself at the beginning, and now as, people our age, who grew up on this stuff are now getting involved in the industry, seeing that passion extrapolate because the folks working the games, making the shows, were the starry-eyed teenagers of yesteryear that dreamed about being a part of the industry before they got into it officially.
I also I need to apologize because Sam and I are both in the same office, and that's why you are made doubly hear some of the sounds of New York.
Oh, no, I get it. It's because that answer was straight fire, so someone had to call the department to put that out. So I get it.
That's exactly right. Yeah, we're all on the East Coast too, right? Like that's the other cool thing. Yeah, East Coast bros. That's awesome. I did, that's awesome. I love the passion that you pursued for that. But what was like your journey to like that first big break? What did you like? I would imagine it wasn't just, I got the big thing that that really paid a bill for the first time, because I think a lot of people, and it's also probably a little bit educational if anybody says, hey, I want to get into voice acting, right? It's a lot different landscape now than it was before.
Right. And
But
I think that's part of why. Oh, go ahead. Finish your question.
no, but I was just going to say, but I imagine it was like kind of a bit of a chip away, and then it's like, oh my God, I just got this thing.
The chipping away is the important part. And I would even say, I don't even know if I could identify a moment that I would consider to be a big break, because what may be a small break to me may be a big break to somebody else. A perfect example that I use is a lot of folks know me as D-Luke in Genshin Impact. And for a long time, that was significant. Even though it's a game that I have openly said I've never touched, it had such a large player base that it was significant in its own right. Nowadays, like, even though if you're familiar with the Amazing Digital Circus, where I voice Kinger, that has completely eclipsed Genshin, even though continues to be a big game. But getting back to your question before I get ahead of myself, the chipping away is a really important part. And especially since you described that the industry is always shifting, and it's definitely not the same as it was 10 or 20 years ago, especially. I find that the chipping away or the consistency is the biggest part of it, because in an industry that is never going to be the same year by year by year, being a source of stability is often a way bigger proponent of success for people who get into this craft versus having a big break that just establishes you. Because there are plenty of examples of people who have big breaks and are the hot topic for a couple years, and then you notice you don't hear about them very much anymore. And we see a lot of examples of celebrities in Hollywood that we would affectionately but realistically consider to be in their burnout phase, where they are trying to stay relevant, but without a reason to be relevant, it comes off very awkward. So to answer it properly, once I knew I wanted to get involved in VO, I spent the time that I was in college just entrenching myself in anything that was related to acting or voiceover, especially. I was doing radio plays that were on campus. I was involved in student-led performance groups. I was doing online communities like Newgrounds and Voice Acting Club, just building up that experience. And once I graduated, I had spent those 4 years saving up money from the odd and end freelance job that I had done to move out, while also being involved in the process in competitions, in submissions to studios, letting them know that I planned on moving out there. Bang Zoom was really the first step for me once I moved out there, because they knew of my existence from a competition that I had done for them. Even though I had won that competition for them, once I moved out to California, it wasn't like they were, just miraculously handing out roles to me and, there was my start as an actor. There had to be a foundation of trust and reputation built. So I let them know I was local. I let them know I was interested in coming in, and they started me small. They started me on Walla groups, where I literally came in and recorded with a group of people. And I'll be honest, I think that was more of testing the waters to see if I could show up on time and follow directions and not try to be the star that's stealing the spotlight. And then once I proved that I was there to do business, not to just try and make a name for myself, then they would start bringing me in for unnamed roles, like single characters in the background. If you have like a crowd scene, and then you hear, like, if you think in SpongeBob, the one guy who out loud goes, "Boo, you suck," right? Like unnamed characters you can distinctly hear. Then recurring unnamed characters, and then maybe named characters that only showed up in one episode. It was this very slow process until I had earned enough rapport with them and had established myself enough that they started sending auditions for named characters that had plot-relevant involvement in the show. And that first example was Diabel in Sword Art Online. I remember this distinctly because I had gotten two character sides. I got Kirito, who was the main character, and I got this guy named Diabel. And I almost didn't read for the side character because in my inexperience, I was like, well, if I read for the side character, what if they cast me for him instead of the main character, and I want to be the main character? But a very helpful colleague who was way more experienced taught me, if they're giving you an opportunity, why would you not take the shot? And there's a perfect example, because when I booked Diabel, you could definitely consider that some people would have considered that a big break, because this was a role that was on a show that aired on Toonami. And anyone that got into anime in the 90s or the early 2000s that wanted to get into voiceover probably viewed being in a show that aired on Toonami as the big break, because that was the anime block, And there were plenty of friends that were like, oh my God, you made it. Like, you are a professional voice actor. But even to me, I didn't see it as the be all end all of, okay, I'm in it now. I'm a professional. It was just one more notch on the progress that I wanted to make for myself. And to avoid this answer becoming a 15-minute thing, that's where I build up to and then say, and everything from there is just an extrapolation, um, Rivali Teba and the Great Deku Tree in The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. You could absolutely consider that a huge break for somebody. That is a first-party, release day Nintendo game, a canon voice Zelda game for anyone who knows about the existence of CDI, that managed to finally surpass Ocarina of Time in terms of overall score and gamer response. How could that not be someone's big break? But then, if we fast forward to today, that game is almost 10 years old. And in the industry, 10
Don't
years...
remind me. Come on, don't say that.
What is it? What's it like?
Don't say that.
10 years is outdated, 20 years is retro, 30 years is vintage or something like that.
Is that the rule? Is that the...
Wait, what's Atari at 50?
What's Atari at 50? Iconic, legendary.
Oh, that's
okay, that's good. I like that. Yeah.
It is an Indiana Jones artifact. That's the Atari. The Atari symbol. The Atari symbol is the thing that he's carefully going up to before swapping it for something else, and then taking it home. This belongs in a museum.
Well, that was good.
Right?
That was good. Look out, Troy Baker.
Yeah, right. So that is. I try not to rest on the laurels of anything for too long because, yes, there are plenty of people for whom Breath of the Wild is going to be their first ever Zelda game. But, and this is kind of how we segue into Bubsy a little bit, I think it's still hitting me how major something like this, like Bubsy 4D is to people, because there are people who didn't grow up on Zelda games, they grew up on Bubsy. And so being able to stay marketable and being able to stay on top of industry trends and being able not to aim for the big breaks and say, okay, now I've made it, but to be the kind of person who, no matter what the opportunity is, can always rise to meet that demand. That is what matters to me, because every project is going to be important to somebody for some reason. There are games that defined my gaming childhood that in the greater gaming sphere didn't matter to most people, but they matter immensely to me. And so I want to be the person who helps make something matter to someone in a way that is unique and special to them.
I want to get to Bubsy, but first, you mentioned Genshin, and I think that's actually a very important and interesting point to make, especially with how games are made today. It's like, the amount of people that are now playing games as a service, games that keep on going. It's not like back in the day when you do a VO for a game and then it was done. And then you say, I mean, that still exists,
sure,
but it's done. And then you say, hey, actually, I'm, oh man, hopefully there's a sequel. Then maybe I'll get another shot to voice this character again. It's almost like VO in games as a service has almost become like a TV show or a soap opera where it just keeps going until the audience goes away.
Right.
And back in the day, it was like, well, if there's a sequel, you'll come back, unless you're the voice of Carmelita Fox in Sly Cooper, in which case you won't. It's guaranteed you won't come back. But have you found like much of a difference in the work in being a VO in a games as a service? How has that kind of changed the landscape of things?
I mean, there are so many different directions we could go from there. And I say that as like a cautionary tale of we should be careful not to end up making the rest of the podcast episode about it. But you make a good point in saying the games as a service model has completely upended a lot of sectors of the industry in various ways. On the industry side, the way it has affected contracts and requirements, when we sign the contracts to sign on as a character, it usually is just for the life of that project. And when we talk about like union games, about how SAG-AFTRA has adjusted contracts over the years, the negotiations regarding games that are provided as a service has really made it difficult to figure out how do we handle games that technically don't end. Because typically when we sign on to contracts, I'm trying to think of a way to give a shorthand answer to this before I move on to the next section. In previous years, we'd sign on and contracts would last about 3 to 5 years, and then they would be renegotiated. But part of those contracts was basically saying, hey, I agree to be a part of this project through to its completion. Like, obviously, I'm not going to sign on to it and then withhold my services after I've already agreed to something in order to ask for better pay rates or better something before I come back. where I'm agreeing to the terms as they exist. But when you have a game that continues on for 4, 5, 8, 10, 15 years in some cases, how do you handle making or requesting adjustments to our pay rates, to our rights as actors, to other concerns that may come up over time, such as the influence of AI, when the argument could be made, hey, you're still on this contract that you agreed to 5, 10, 15 years ago, so you need to stick to the terms that you agreed to back before all this became relevant. Does that make sense? So that's a whole can of worms that I think is best saved for a different one. On the fan side, especially when we talk about something like Genshin, because these games are being provided as a service, you have people that are playing these games for years on end, for thousands of hours in some cases. And voiceover as well has become an industry that is more mainstream than it used to be. I remember when I first moved out to California, having a veteran tell me, I can tell that things are changing. I used to be able to record for my games and then go to a coffee shop and no one knew what I looked like. No one recognized me. It was nice to have that privacy. But now it feels like we're being more and more expected to market ourselves to be the face of the project, not just the voice that's part of it. And this was being told to me back in 2012, okay? So imagine what it's like 13 years later as the continual Hollywood creep has gone on. But fans now feel more attached than ever to the development point of the process. And that is an interesting observation I've made as well, because not even just in the sense of them feeling a connection to the actors that are involved in a project, but this sense of, I'm not going to call it entitlement, because not every case is entitlement, but I'm sure you have noticed there is a broader sense of freedom that people express in sharing their ideas, their opinions, their expectations, their wants, their disappointments, all of that with the development team of a game. It would have been unheard of back in the 90s for people to be calling into Nintendo saying, I think you should do this for the next Mario game that you make. I mean, I'm sure that they did it, but Nintendo probably said, yes, that's very nice. Thank you for your time. And then hung up the phone. And the conversation was just between, them and the very passionate fan. But on X, on Twitter, on Blue Sky, on all of these social media things, you see under any post that any company makes, hundreds of people who have opinions to express about how things should be done, or how upset they are that something wasn't done a certain way, or how hopeful they are.
We wouldn't know anything about that.
Right. And you better do this, and I hope that, this character does more of this, or I mean, they say it jokingly, but it's like, if it doesn't have this, I'm going to ask for a refund on day one. And yeah, it's funny the first couple of times, but at what point does it become serious? At what point does it become an actual demand expectation? And it's just something that I'm aware of as well. And especially when we talk about games as a service, the longer people have spent, the more, I'm not going to call it a sunk cost fallacy, but the more time, money, investment, effort that people have put into a game, the more they feel like they have a say in what should happen because they have helped contribute to that game's lifespan. And I think it's still very fresh. And I think it's still something that we need to navigate because it has happened so fast that no one has had time to properly sit back and go, whoa, what do we do about this? So,
yeah, I wish we had like another 2 hours to talk because this to me. But I just opened up that box. I was just like, I'm just curious to know what you think. And then it's like, oh man, we could keep talking about this. That would have been awesome. But
and you went a little Patrick Warburton. I'm just curious to know what you think about this.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, hey, what can I say? I'm an amateur interviewer. So Sam, rescue us. Ask a question about Bubsy.
Ask a question about Bubsy.
Yeah, come on, man. I'm not enthused when M not talk about me.
Yeah.
What was your first thought when you were approached about Bubsy? I assume Fabian is the one that reached out to you, right?
Am I allowed to be PG-13 on this podcast?
You can be PG-13. I will censor F-bombs.
I laughed my ass off. My ass off because, and I say this with love and understanding. There's no disappointment. There's no, I could have had something better. But I need you to understand, since the age of 12 and a half, my username online has been Sonic Mega, based on Sonic and based on Mega Man, my two favorite characters at the time. I have expressed to people, and I have been told by people that I have the capacity to voice a version of Sonic or a version of Mega Man some point in my career. And I wouldn't be bothered if I never did, but I need you to understand that has been the established expectation of people, lovingly but half seriously, of someday he's going to voice one of these two characters. And now, in the year of our Lord 2025, I have Gunvolt and I have Bubsy. And I just, that is the funniest thing. My mentor, the person who trained me in my earliest months when I first said I want to become a voice actor, has voiced Sonic the Hedgehog in Sonic Prime. And so it is whatever the Michelangelo painting is of being this close to touching God and then landing among the stars of Bubsy and Gunvolt. And I don't want that to be taken the wrong way, because I am reminded every day of how many people love Bubsy. I am so appreciative that I get to explore this character and see, what his legacy was. But I do find it ironic. So, so that was the initial thought that I had. But the other thought that I had was I immediately had this sense of confidence because I had worked with Fabraz before on other projects. And, this goes back to that passion that I mentioned. I have always believed that if the passion is not there, the end product is going to be missing something. Because you can check every box on a checklist of the game has to have this, it has to have this, the graphics need to look good. But as someone who's done hosting auditions for charity marathons, as someone who's done auditions for characters, if the passion, if the genuine desire to want to bring that world to life isn't there, you can feel it. We are emotional creatures. We can feel when the love is not there. And I trusted from the very get-go that this team was going to do what they needed to do to make the game look as good as possible, but that they also were going to add their own experience into it. They were gonna be a little cringe when they wanted to be cringe. They were gonna be silly when they wanted to be silly. They were gonna toe the line as much as Atari would let them toe the line. And you can see the results. You can see every time they post a video, there's usually one sort of one-liner that has Blue Sky going, "Whoa, wait, what did they just say? This is an E for everyone game? Are you kidding me?" And that's the kind of thing that sticks with people, because it's not just a cool looking game. It's a cool looking game that has its own personality, and that's how you develop a fan base around something. You give it a reason to linger beyond just beating a challenge.
Was there any moment when you were going through the script and reading something where you were like, "Oh, actually, I think do you actually have you become Bubsy? Are you now Bubsy? Are you Method right now?"
I need you to know that the moment that I saw that they had planned on implementing a mode, I think it was called the 9 lives mode, where once you lose your 9 lives, you delete your save file.
Yeah.
With no incentive, with no request, with no floating the idea in the air. That same day, I recorded about 2.5 minutes of improvised lines that Bubsy might say on the game over screen when you lose your last life. I'll give one example. The very end of that file is a line where I go, "Do me a favor, will you? I want you to be the one to bury me at my funeral. That way you can let me down one last time."
So good.
There's another one that's like, "What do you mean I'm dead? Didn't you see how much money they spent bringing me back?" So I don't know how many of them will end up in the game, but I need you to know that half of the stuff I recorded was what they wrote down for me, and then every time I did the lines that were written for me, I did at least 2 or 3 more ad-libbed ones that came to me in the moment.
Got it. Were there any lines other than that you thought, Bubsy actually, did you get to a point where you were reading and saying, I don't think Bubsy would say this, and I don't mean this with any disrespect to Fabian, because he did most of the writing, and it's awesome. The script is fantastic. We saw it, and you said whatever Atari lets him get away with. Sam and I were always like, yeah, let's do it, and then and I think they got probably 99.9% of what they want in the game.
I would say most of any suggested changes I might have made were not changing the words that were written. It was adding on to what was already there. So it was giving them the opportunity to say, if you would like more than what is written here, here is an option. but I would make sure to also give them it exactly as written. So just doing a random example. One of the things that Bubsy can do in the game is he finds a blueprint and he looks it over and it gives him a new skill that he can learn or something like that. And maybe the baseline was, oh, look, another blueprint. And that's very simple. But maybe I might add on to that and bring in some of his sarcasm by going, oh, look, another blueprint, because I want reading in my video games, something like that. Or maybe I would like make a fourth wall reference and be like, oh, look, a blueprint. Now I have something to read, since they never include manuals with these things anymore. Right. See, the fact that caught you off guard and made you laugh, that may be what took that line from, okay, that's a checkbox that's been ticked. We need to make sure he has a comment for when he finds a blueprint. But maybe that ad lib took it to the next step where they go, that was fun. That was charming. Players are going to think about that, and they might choose to include that in the game. So that's where a lot of those adjustments came in and said, here's what you asked for. Here's my idea on top of it. You can take it or leave it. I'm giving it to you for free.
Yeah, that's really cool. How do you... So there is like, you mentioned Sonic, you mentioned Gunvolt. I mean, you mentioned Mega Man. I mean, think about Sonic and the pantheon of Mascot platformers that have voices now, right? And they started getting voices in the, Mario had a voice pretty early on in 64, right? When he got
right.
That's when he really started talking, and you kind of get it, even in little quips, but there's a very distinct sound, right? Even Sonic always has this kind of distinct sound to it.
Sure.
And every other Mascot platformer has that same thing. So how do you approach something like Bubsy that already has a voice in prior titles, and now you're giving it something new, while also making sure that you create something that is distinct from the rest of the pantheon that is unique to Bubsy himself?
So there are a lot of different ways of approaching that, and I'll do my best to describe the one approach that we took for this project in particular. First of all, and perhaps most importantly, voiceover and especially game development is a collaborative process. Yes, I am the person that they bring in to help give voice to a character and bring them to life. But in many cases, no one is going to understand the direction that they're trying to take for a game better than the game team themselves. So my job really is to come in and go, hello, everyone. Tell me about this world you've created. Tell me about my character's role in that world. Are they meant to be comedic relief? Are they meant to be a self-insert for the player? Are we observing them, or are we playing as them? What is their relationship with other characters? Are we laying thick on the comedy? Are we going for a grounded performance? As an example, Mass Effect plays very differently than Spider-Man, plays very differently than Call of Duty. Those graphics are all in the same realm of trying to be realistic, but the performance style, very different between those games. And so when we talk about, do we honor the legacy? Are we doing something different? Well, Fabraz had a very distinct idea in mind. They said, here's the type of personality we're going for the character. And so as a creative, I can tell you, when I sent the samples for Bubsy, first and foremost, I did about 3 different sets. I said, okay, I imagine there's a couple different ways we're probably going to go. Maybe version 1 is, I'm washed up, Bubsy. It's been a while. I'm like chain smoking, and I was recently at a convention where Sonic was doing way better than me. But that's my angle. I'm the hard ass who refuses to die. Or maybe he's the kid at heart. Maybe he never really moved past it, and he's still kind of immature, and he's still very up here. If we think of some of the older games where he was the wisecracker, and then as you notice, we ended up landing somewhere in the middle, where no, he doesn't treat himself as washed up, but he also isn't trying to be the wisecracker all the time, who's like, oh, did I do that? That kind of thing. We ended up somewhere in the middle where everyone knows someone in life who is, they're happy-go-lucky and maybe they're a little quirky, but you find yourself having fun with them because they find the fun in everything else. So not quite in the realm of annoying, but not quite in the realm of being super self-deprecating, if that makes sense. So once we had that pocket, then we figured out how that would affect the way that he delivered the lines. And that's where I would lean on him and say, would he be more sarcastic about this? Is he being genuine about this? When he talks to his siblings, is he the desperate uncle who's trying to be cool? Or are they the ones that people go, hey, you need to lighten up a little because Bubsy's a swell guy and you're being too harsh on him? Understanding what the dynamic is supposed to be will also be something that affects the performance. And from there, it was really just about being consistent. Like, there were some times where I would continue performing. They say, let's pull it back a little bit, because I could feel myself starting to rise up in pitch. Because when you're doing a smiley character who's always got some kind of quip to say, sometimes you find yourself, going a little bit higher and then higher. Now all of a sudden you're Rob Paulson doing Yakko and Animaniacs. We're doing, hey Brain, what are we gonna do today? So
he did voice Bubsy.
He did, and so. And it's interesting that you mentioned that, or I'm glad that you mentioned that, because I don't think we ended up referencing any of the past performances, and I'm glad for that, because I didn't want to end up trying to imitate what came before me. It was clear that this was supposed to be a different iteration of him, a different part of his life. Obviously, he even had a costume change. So just going at it with fresh eyes and ears and listening to the team that was working on the game that I was also working on and hearing their vision and then doing my best to bring that vision to life is what allowed us to get an organic, authentic approach. Even if it's not perfect, it was still a choice that we made together, as opposed to an attempt at imitating what has already existed.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, it's a nice peek behind the curtain. And as you've been this character, what do you think people should know about this Bubsy that they won't know through the game itself? Like, is there anything, like, as you undertake this performance and quote unquote become Bubsy, right? What are some things that your Bubsy is thinking that we are not hearing?
I'm scared to refer to him as a fail male, as I've seen online and as many people have called him.
They seem to like that, though. They seem to like it. I don't know.
I'm hoping that it's a genuine, like, affectionate Zoomer term, as opposed to being something that's going to be co-opted by groups I don't want to associate with. But it brings to light something really interesting. There used to be all these console wars. There used to be all these, love-hate groups of, like, either you're a diehard Nintendo fan or you're a diehard Sony fan, and you're not allowed to be both. You're either one or the other. And nowadays, in the same way that we're seeing better acceptance of different fandoms, better acceptance of different expressions, whether that's gender or sexuality or stuff like that, in pop culture, there is this wider acceptance of just passion for things in general, whether it's Dungeons and Dragons, whether it's Star Trek or Star Wars. And so, in the same vein that Bubsy is often referred to as the wannabe platformer, or as someone who is trying too hard, or is cringe, you are starting to see the words cringe and fail male and, desperate uncle and, dad bod used as a term of endearment rather than as a term of mockery. And I think that's an incredibly interesting twist, whether that's because players who identify with Bubsy, who are like, you know what, I'm not attractive like certain other mascots, but I like seeing a character who isn't afraid to be themselves. Or if it's people who have unabashed passion for the franchise going, I don't give a crap what anyone else wants to say about Bubsy. He's my hero. He's the person I grew up with, and I'm tired of acting like it's something to be embarrassed about. In the same way that a lot of people used to treat Dungeons and Dragons as something to be ashamed of or to be secretive about. And now between Critical Role and Dimension 20 and all these other things, I would almost say it's more unusual if you aren't involved in something related to D&D. Like, I get asked all the time, do you play D&D? Do you watch Critical Role? Do you do these things? And I feel like the odd one out for going, no, my wife's really big into it, but I don't really get involved. So I think that's where I sit, is I think it's really charming to see people go, you know what? No, Bubsy is not the iconic, everyone wants to be him platformer, but he is himself, and he's unashamedly himself. And I think there is this movement, there's this push to accept people for who they are and not what you want them to be, that is bleeding over into gaming in general, where folks are just happy to have more of something they enjoyed when they were younger versus wanting it to be their ideal of what something should be nowadays. Gaming is more accessible than ever before and has more options than ever before. And especially in an era where we see a lot of AAA games. I mean, Don't even get me started on the discourse of some companies trying to call their games quadruple or quintuple A. But you see the pushback from gamers going, listen, you can call your game whatever you want. You can charge whatever you want for your game. But if I'm not feeling invested in it, I'm not going to play. I'm not going to buy it. And if I can get something that's $20, $30, $40 that brings me joy in my life in the middle of all the other stuff happening in this world, that's what I'm going to go towards. And I fully approve of that. There is way too much going on for us to be busy fighting about what we should be getting from our games. And we should instead be spending our time and money and our mental energy on the stuff that makes us happy.
Very cool. I like that. That's a very nice sentiment. Right.
I really hope I'm not just overloading you both with information.
No, I love this. I really, the more we talk, the more I'm mad that we have to turn this thing off in 10 minutes. And I also don't have a good transition from that. So now I'm just going to subject you to a stupid game. But the good news is the game is about you. So that'll just make this more
leave
fun.
9 minutes early. It's been great. Thank you.
No,
I appreciate your
you're
time.
not getting out of this one. No, it's good because it's you're gonna like it probably or not.
Okay.
I always like to end these episodes with games, playing games relevant to the topic at hand in some way, loosely or explicitly. This one's pretty explicit. Are you familiar with Moby Games?
Vaguely. Tell me more.
All right, so you are on. Don't look it up because it'll be cheating. But you are on Moby Games, and Moby Games is basically the IMDb of games. It is actually owned by Atari. If you want to learn anything about a game, the credits, any information about it, you can find it. So I looked up your name on Moby Games, and you have 223 credits on 140 games. That's what it says here.
Mm-hmm. And that's just games? It doesn't include any non-game?
That's just games. We're talking about games here. So what I did was I took the games and I sorted them by Moby score. Now, I often play this game and use the Moby score. And if you're not familiar what the Moby score is, I always like explaining it. The Moby score is the Bayesian average of critic and player ratings. You can use the Moby score to get an idea of how others feel about the game. Are you familiar with the Bayesian inference, Sean?
Yes. Back when I was in middle school, I often wore my green Hyrule t-shirt and beige shorts. And my understanding is the Bayesian inference is how nerdy or unpopular is a kid in school based on how beige his shorts are and how many pockets there are. I believe
that's pretty much what it is. So we'll go with that. So basically, I have taken the games and I've ordered them by Moby score. And we're gonna do 3 rounds of guessing between you and Sam.
Okay.
And you will basically get points.
Which one is higher than the other?
Yeah, basically, if you have to guess what is in the top 10, and you will get points based on their inverse position. So you get 10 points for 1, 9 points for 2, et cetera, et cetera. And because there's such a wealth of games to choose from, it's going to be very interesting to see where this nets out.
Okay.
But you guys are both pretty well versed in your catalog of games, so I'm very excited. No cheating, Sam!
I would never.
All right. And Sean, since you are our guest, I will let you guess first. What do you think is high
I don't even get the list of games? I have to just remember games?
Just remember games that you've been credited in and how they rank.
A handful off the top of my head.
Okay.
Good news. You're only going to have 3 guesses.
Okay, good.
If I had to pick,
just don't say the ones I'm going to say.
If I had to pick the one that I think is number 1, am I guessing what I think is number 1?
Yeah, because higher is going to give you more points.
I'm going to guess The Legend of Zelda: Breath of the Wild because there is only one type of person that I know that would willingly spend the time to play an open world game and search for 900 of those goddamn Korok seeds, and it is also the only type of person that would actually sit down and take the effort to write a review for Moby Games. So I don't expect most of the people who hated the game would make the time to write a review. So it's going to be biased towards a higher score just because of that.
Well, keep in mind, I don't think it's not necessarily written reviews. It's also critical reviews and all the other things. So don't think too much. Just think higher is better. And your instincts were right, despite the rationale being still maybe right, but that you got 10 points for that. That's number one on the list.
Yes.
All right, Sam, what's your first guess?
Well, following up from that, let's go Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom.
Number 2 on the list.
Hell yeah. You say a game, I'll just say the sequel.
That's
so perfect.
Funny.
All right, so now 1 and 2 are gone.
There needs to be a threequel.
Well, kind of. There's that Warriors game, right? Isn't that kind of
That's true. But now that you've mentioned it, I know it's not number 3. That's a trap, sir. You're baiting me into a trap.
Fair enough. All right, Sean, guess number 2.
Wait, I thought they guessed number 2, and this is number 3.
No, your second guess. You will get points as long as it's in the top 10. Okay. After 3 rounds, whoever has the most points is the winner.
This has probably one of the most lasting fandoms in the entire wealth of games that I've voiced. So I don't know if I have to name a specific one or if I can just name the franchise.
I need a full title.
Danganronpa Trigger Happy Havoc.
No, hang on a second.
This guy's a real Danganronpa.
If there was an anime visual novel that would somehow be in the top 10 of games, it would be this Tumblr destroying, social media polarizing, like identity shifting megalith of a murder mystery series.
So Danganronpa is one of my favorites of all time. Sam actually brought me back Sam's fiance brought me this.
Uh-huh.
It says Danganronpa, and it's got the little Monokuma face on it because he knows, they both know how much I love Danganronpa. I don't know how to tell you this. It's not in the top 10. And for reference, that's got a Moby score of an 8.3. Whereas Zelda, both Zeldas actually, they both have a 9.4. But because Breath of the Wild is ranked higher, that's why that is number 1. So, Sean, I'm sorry, that is a goose egg for round 2. Sam, now's your time to take the lead.
All right.
Second guess.
We spoke about it earlier. It has to be Genshin Impact.
Genshin Impact is also, it's actually not even listed here. I don't know why.
What?
Yeah, sorry. I don't know what to tell you.
Oh, man.
But that is also not unless. Let's see if. Okay, here we go. So let me look up the Moby score here. Okay, so that's got a Moby score of a 7.3. So also not in the top 10.
I am not as surprised because I don't think there's anyone who dislikes Genshin Impact more than Genshin Impact players. So.
Yeah, we're definitely familiar with those fandoms. All right, Sean, final guess.
Oh, I gotta get myself
to secure the lead. If you get number 3, you win.
Oh my god, I want to go with like a fighting game that I've been in, but like that also can have such a polarizing view. I'm trying to think of something that's beloved. I'm being legit. I'm not looking it up. But it also means I can't remember most of the stuff that I've played.
I also think critical acclaim. You got to think about that too. It's not just about the people. The Bayesian average.
This has got everything. It's got the glow up. It's got the nostalgia factor. It's got the hot men who kind of look like women. It's even got gender expressive cross dressing.
Oh, I know where you're going with this.
Final Fantasy VII Remake.
Okay. That is number 9 on the list. Wow. So you have 12 points. Sam, you need to guess number 7 or higher in order to win.
I don't think my last one is as popular as Legend of Zelda or Final Fantasy, but it is a favorite, a recent favorite. It is the Somnium Files.
Full title?
You're in that, right, Pewter?
Yes. AI.
Yes.
I'm gonna need a full title for that one.
It's AI, like the letters AI.
Oh, no, Sam, I need the full title.
Okay, so it isn't the first one then. The Nirvana.
So you're just gonna go with the first one.
No, I'm gonna say the Nirvana.
The sequel.
Okay, so the good news is, if it was the Somnium Files, that would have been number 24. Because you said the Somnium Files Nirvana Initiative, That's number 14, so you still get 0 points. Sean is our winner.
Yes!
Wow.
Finally, I'm relevant. I'm number one in something. Oh, the sweet,
The top
sweet
10,
victory.
just to speed up the end here, because I want to make sure, Sean, you get any plugs in here. The top 10, by the way, so we said Breath of the Wild, we said Tears of the Kingdom. Those have a 9.4. Number 3, Persona 5 Royal with a 9.3.
Yeah.
Then God of War Ragnarok with the 9.2. God of War 2018 with the 9.0. Street Fighter 6, you should have went with those fighting game instincts with a 9.0. Number 7, Final Fantasy 7 Rebirth with an 8.9. Persona 5 Royal with an 8.9. Then Final Fantasy.
Count. You can't put two of the same game on the list.
One was listed for PS4, one's listed for PS5. I'm sorry, I don't make the list. You're right. Hey, Sam, good news. Your Nirvana initiative still would have not gotten you any points. I will change that. Let's go to. I'll give you number 11 as the number 10.
Going over my time to say this. This is like making a top 5 list of games we'd like to see remade, and like number 1 is Pokemon Red Blue. 2, 3, and 4 are God of War 2004, 2008, and 2015, and then number 5 is like Mega Man X3. All right,
Hey Sean, this works out in your favor. You actually get 1 more point because Final Fantasy VII Remake moved up a spot, so you get actually 13 points. You've still won just by a larger margin. But then Remake at number 9 with an 8.8. Then The Last of Us Part 2 with an 8.8. And then Marvel Spider-Man 2 with an 8.7. All right. So that's the list. Thank you for enduring that silly game. I thought it was also a great way just to show how many absolute bangers Sean has appeared in over the years.
Go on a crusade to get people to vote those games that he guessed up so that in like 3 months he can send you a screenshot and go, I technically won today. It just took a little bit of extra time.
He did it. But who did you voice in Danganronpa?
I voiced Kiyotaka Ishimaru, and then in the third game, I also voiced Monotaro.
Nice. Oh, yeah, right. I did look it up.
Oh. Yeah.
Ishimaru, that guy. What a RIP and P, spoiler alert. All right, well, so Sean, where can people find you? First of all, thanks again so much for joining. This is such a good time. I hope you also had fun.
Yes. I hope you feel like you got thorough answers to the questions that you managed to ask.
I did. I mean, I more than I ever could have hoped for. This was amazing.
And Sam, thank you for the Glover rep. I see it in the back.
Glover.
I appreciate
I got Glover back there.
Yes.
I got my other platforming rep here. I don't know if you can see.
Wait,
I got
what?
Jerry.
Is
Jerry Garcia's tap water right there, Gex. Don't drink it.
People can find me on Blue Sky or Twitch. Same username. It's Sonic Mega, SONICMEGA. Blue Sky is where I share a lot of my silly posts and my goings on in the voiceover industry. Twitch is where I stream a lot of games that I enjoy. Right now, we're kind of split between. I recently had my 3DS modified to allow for streaming. So I am streaming.
Cool.
I'm playing through Etrian Odyssey 4.
With the camera, like on the 3DS?
Huh?
Or like with the camera on the 3DS? Or like just like a capture card? That would have been really funny.
But I'm currently streaming. I'm playing a couple games on there. I'm streaming Etrian Odyssey 4, which is one of my favorite franchises of all time. And I'm being cringe and writing additional cutscenes and lore that I narrate live on stream. So you should check that out.
Awesome.
If you get the chance.
That's so cool.
I'm also streaming Solitarobo Red the Hunter. Are you familiar with that?
I love that game. Yeah.
To give you an idea of how
I own that.
Rocky Horror Picture Show this game is, there was a point when you could buy it for less than $10 in a bargain bin because no one knew what this game was. I had to pay $475 plus shipping to get my copy of the game for streaming because it is now a cult classic favorite that you can't find anywhere anymore.
I bought that I ordered that on Amazon when it was out.
Yes. I'm trying to think of what other games we're focusing on right now. Other than that, we do random stuff. I've been addicted to Peak. I am so addicted to Peak right now. I recently did a solo run where I finished in under an hour, and I was really proud of that. So, those are the two places I would check me out. I also always tell people if there's an event near you that is looking for guests to invite, I am always open to recommendations. I get people asking, are you willing to come to Florida? Are you willing to come to, New Zealand? Are you willing to come to Europe? The answer is, if they want me and I'm a good fit for it, I'm always happy to come and travel. I love getting to see people and talk about the work that I've done or talk about what work I've done that's important to them. So I would say those are the three major elements.
That's awesome. Thanks so much. Sam, I'm just going to go through yours just to wrap this up quickly. Sam is Smug Porky. Go find him out there on the internet, on Blue Sky, Twitter, etc. Jay's
I also wanted to jump in.
Oh, damn it, Sam! He's got to go!
I want to jump in to say, if you want a sneak peek at Sean's Bubsy voice, we just released released a collection of all the Bubsy games, and you do a little narration on the on the menu there.
That's true.
Yeah.
I forgot about that. Also, Sam, just to check real quick, how do you spell sneak peek?
Sneak peek. It is SNEAK and then PEEK.
Okay,
that sounds
we can
right.
be friends. We can be friends.
Yeah.
That is my trigger.
That's the correct way.
Just the way that, what was it? Barnes has his trigger word in the Marvel series. When people spell peek, PEAK, and sneak peek, it's like automatic rejection. I just, whatever you're shilling to me, I'm not paying attention to it anymore.
Wow. All right. Very cool. And I don't know if I said, I'm Jays of Doom on Blue Sky, and all the links to all these things are below. Love all the positivity on the last podcast. Thank you for all those crazy comments about the prototype outfit in the game. If you follow Fabian Afrobraz on the social medias, you will see he actually did post a video of that horrifying man. So there's that. Go check that out.
As Bubsy would say, and remember, kids, if you don't have anything nice to say, save it for my competition.
I like it. On that note, thanks for listening. Be back next episode. Thank you so much, Sean, for joining again.
Thanks for having me.
Bye.